Well, the game is working, but I need some help to determine exactly where these enemies are coming from, so I've got the opportunity to confront them. So what I want is a sort of radar screen in the top left corner here, which will show me where the enemies are, how far away they are, and which direction I need to turn to get at them. So it's another user interface thing, but as we can see on the user interface, we're quite limited in what we can put on there. And the best we can do is put on a raw image. So I'll do that. And I'll call this radar image. And I'm going to put that in the top left corner. Just move it in a bit. Right, that's where I want the radar to appear. Now in the textures, I've got this picture of a radar screen, which I could put on there. Right, but it's not going to do anything, it's just a picture. So I actually want to do something else. I want to get it to animate, and that's a bit more tricky. So I'm going to just take that out again. And what we can do is we can produce a render texture. So if I just go in here, create, and we've got a render texture, I'll put that in. And I'll call that the radar render screen. Now a render texture can be thought of as a sort of projection screen. So we can have a camera and we can project whatever that camera sees onto that render screen, and then we can put that on the user interface. Okay, so we need to build up our radar assembly. So I'm just going to go to create an empty object, and I'm going to call that radar assembly. Now I'm just going to zero that for the moment, so reset it, but that's precisely where I don't want it to be. I want this to go on way out of the way so that it doesn't interfere with the game itself. So I'm going to put it at 400 on the x-axis. So it's well out of the way now. In fact, it's there. Okay, so that's our main playing area, and it's going to be here. Now on the radar assembly, I'm going to add in a 3D object called a quad. A quad is simply a rectangle that you can add things to. So I'm going to put this in the radar assembly as a child, and this is going to be the radar. So now if we zoom in on this, there's our quad. And I'm going to put my picture of the radar screen on that quad. Excellent. Let's take off the 2D so we can... Right. So what I need to do is get a picture of this screen. So I'll add a camera. So I can create another camera. I'm going to call this the radar camera. I'm going to make that a child of the radar assembly as well. Now immediately it starts showing all of this stuff. I'm going to move it out, and you can see we've got a picture of the screen there. Now a few changes here. One is you can have as many cameras as you like. Now the first camera is called main because it's set with a depth. Let me just show you that. So it's on the dolly. So there's the main camera. It's got a depth of -1. So the lower the depth, the more preferred that camera is. So this one is just, it's got a depth of 0. And if we added another camera, it would have a depth of 1 and so forth. Right, so a few things. I don't want this to be a perspective camera. I'm going to change it to orthographic. And I don't want all of that screen, so I'm going to change the size. So there we go, I can shrink it down. Okay, that's fine. And I don't want this skybox behind it, so I'm going to choose a solid color, and that solid color is going to be black, and that matches the background there. Right, so this camera has an object called target texture, so I can project that onto a particular target texture, which I've got here is the radar render screen. So I'm going to add that in here. Thankfully it's the only one, so there we go. And then this render texture I can put onto the radar image we've got there. So I'm going to add that texture to this, and then we've got an image of the screen on the user interface. A few changes here. Yes, on the materials, that's automatically created by adding a texture to an object. We've got this. And I don't want the standard shader. I want to have the sprites default, and that gets rid of the outline there. Right, so we have our radar in the corner, and we should see that in the radar assembly, zoom in again on that. Right, if I choose the radar image itself and then rotate it around the Z-axis, it also rotates on the user interface. So what I want to do is this should rotate with the ship. I'm just going to reset that, which means making a modification to the ship control. So let's get the ship control script on the screen. So here's my code for the ship control. I'm just going to add in a reference to that radar screen. Now, I'm not interested as a game object, but I'm interested in rotating it. I'm only interested in its transform component. Let's say radar screen. Now, if we just go down to the fixed update here, right, so you remember that we've got this H rotation is the rotation of the ship. So basically we need to do the same thing with the radar screen. So I'm going to create a new vector 3. I'm going to call this radar rot for radar rotation, and we're going to rotate it around the Z-axis, that's forward axis. So I'm going to put vector 3.forward and multiply that by the horizontal rotation. Oops. And then all I need to do is to rotate the radar screen on. So we've got the radar screen dot rotation, And then I've got it's got to be a quaternion, remember, but I can use the vector 3 to set it. So that should rotate the radar screen, hopefully in the opposite direction. Let's just check that. Okay, it's looking good. Right, back to Unity. Right, so what I need to do now is add in the radar screen. So here it is. So I'll just pop that in there. And we'll see if that does the job. Right, so I'm rotating left and the wheel's rotating right, which is as it should be. So basically, the top of the screen, oops, that's me done for. So I didn't see any radar blips. So the next thing we need to do is put radar blips on our screen.